So I'm taking you along on a homestead, homemaking, slow living prep day to kind of, have a chatty conversation about life and preparedness, and how sometimes preparedness is not the go bags and the emergency kits, but it's the simple everyday things. It's basically like homemaking plus. And why I think that this is something that feminists should care about. Hey friends, popping in here to say that this is going to be one of my chatty videos. My name is Brecky. If you don't know, this is Sustainable Prepping, where we talk about empowerment through preparedness, and this is a chatty video all about homemaking, skills, what do we do with our time and how we do it, and I am yoking it with an actual busy workday in the kitchen. I hope that you will join me. So let's get back to it. For those of you that have been around for a while, you know that I believe that there needs to be a re-embracing of homemaking from feminists. But homemaking needs to be a team sport. So it's not just the job of a woman or even just one person in a two-partner household, but rather whole families need to embrace the work of homemaking. Today I am putting together lasagna. I have just ground up all the meat. I had some beef in my freezer that's been there for about a year and a half. We bought a half a cow and we're getting a quarter cow in about a month. So I'm cooking up the last of that beef because it's been in the freezer way too long. It's all fine, it's not freezer burned, but it needs to be used. So here is my ground beef. I'm going to drain off a little bit of the liquid and then start making my lasagna sauce. I'm bringing you along. We're just having a chatty day in the kitchen. All right, I've browned the ground beef. I've made the sauce. I just poured in 2 jars of marinara. So this is one I got from Aldi. In fact, I just got this in a haul. And then one that's been on my shelves for a while from Trader Joe's. Here's the deal. Can you make your own? Yeah. Can you can your own? Totally. Did I have time to do that? No. I work a full-time job and I don't grow tomatoes right now. We just moved into a new house. So canning my own tomatoes, turning it into sauce, then to use is like 3 steps I don't have time for. So part of preparedness, in my opinion, is having a really good sense of your limits. What are your limits? Your financial limits, your ability limits, your time limits. Because I have an outside day job, I have 4 children, and I run this channel, and I do a couple other creative hobbies, I don't have time to do things like make all of my own tomato products. This is an area where, because of time capacity, I choose to invest my dollars instead of my time into that product. So this is one of the things I think we have to talk about when it comes to homemaking, when it comes to our shared future together. I am not all about self-sufficiency because I can't depend on myself. I can't do everything for myself, both time-wise, ability-wise, and like family obligation-wise. So I'm glad that there are companies that make it for myself. I'm glad we have farmers that grow tomatoes. I'm glad we have companies that make high-quality tomato sauces. I'm glad that I could buy beef from a local farmer, both when I lived in West Virginia and then now that I live in North Carolina, we found a local farm down the road from my church. Recently, I was talking to the wonderful Amy over on Grounded in Maine's podcast, which I will be on in a couple weeks, and she said, not self-sufficiency, but community sufficiency. I've been really sitting with that. I love that idea. A community brought this sauce together, right? I made the sauce, I put the ingredients together, but they came to my home and were able to be in this pan because of a community and the efforts of a community. And I love that. And there's, to me, something about intersectional feminism and our understandings of the world and the sauce, right? That I can't do it by myself, I do it in community. How do we explore that? How do we make that a part of our homesteading and our homemaking and our preparedness? I'm not sure. I don't have all the answers, but I feel like we can at least begin the conversation. Drop me a comment and let me know how you understand this concept of community sufficiency. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to open more of a conversation about it. I have a bunch of defrosted chicken, more than I had space in my little container, and now I'm just gonna be cutting this chicken into chunks that are gonna go into pint jars. I could do quarts, but I prefer pints because I can give away pints easier than I can give away quarts. And if I'm making something where my big boys are gone and it's just my husband and I and the girls, a pint is fine. A pint holds about a pound of chicken, so that's what we're gonna try to do, is get 7 pints. The currency in homesteading isn't necessarily money. In fact, a lot of people are trying to be frugal, but what you trade for dollars is time. And I will tell you, I've had to often say no to things because of time. Say no to hobby projects, or it's like the tomatoes. I don't have time. I don't have the time to do it. And my husband is very supportive of me doing it, but this is my thing. He is not interested in learning to can. He's not interested in making, casseroles for the freezer. That's just not something he wants to do. He'll do other things. He's happy to help a little bit with the gardening and the landscaping, and we built a campfire last night, and he wants to do a whole big project with that, which is great. And he wants to put in kind of like a cowboy camp stove out in the back eventually. So, he's got his own projects, but this is not something he wants to spend his time doing, which means if I want to get it done, it has to be me, and I don't always have the time. And so I think as we talk about preparedness, as we talk about homesteading, and y'all know that's not my favorite term, as we talk about sustainable living and slow living, a lot of what we're really talking about is how we spend our time. And a future after global climate change in which, some of this just-in-time global farming is not available is going to mean a lot more time that we have to devote to things like cooking, things like cleaning, things like finding our own fuel, right? The currency will be time, I think. And resources, but time to collect the resources, all of that. And that's something I think about a lot, the currency of time and how we manage our time. There's a reason why through most of human history there is a division of labor, and that one partner in a two-partner household, often an extended family household, so it wasn't just on one partner, managed a home. That was a job. A housekeeper was a job, right? The Proverbs 31 woman is an entrepreneur who works from home and manages a staff. A home that's efficient and effective is a job. So I really admire homemakers. I just worry about women not having access to their own income. And the fact that I don't want my entire life to be homemaking. I really enjoy my intellectual pursuits in my job. I enjoy getting out of the house. I enjoy seeing the people that I see. And I also enjoy a lot of aspects of homemaking. And so how do we embrace a future of balance? And where is that balance? And I don't see very many people talking about it. I see it, one side or the other. Either you're a feminist who wants a career and women shouldn't be locked in the home, or you're a trad wife who's like, women belong in the home and that's all, and neither is right. Right? Neither is right for everybody. For some women, a career is like, and not minding a home is totally what's correct for them. And for some women, minding a home full time is totally what's correct for them. And a lot of us, most of us, are probably in the middle. Anyways, currency of time. Maintaining a home well is a full-time job, and I think as we hit global climate change and insecure food systems, it's all going to come back. We're going to have to re-embrace some of this stuff out of necessity, and what do we do with that? And how do we do it in a way that's feminist and intersectional and empowering, rather than disempowering and repeating bad structures that we've worked so hard to get free from? Not sure. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. I'm going to go chop some chicken. Okay, I'm over at my stove. I like a glass top stove because I can turn it into a workstation. The sauce has cooked through with the meat and the flavors have gotten friendly. They've done the do-si-do, as you might say, and now I am shredding up one of these mozzarella packs to go into the lasagna sort of cheesy cream sauce. I've got cottage cheese, so I'll do cottage cheese and an egg, maybe two, mozzarella, and then some shaky Parmesan cheese, not the fancy kind because I don't have it. The future is going to require us to kind of consider how we're using and when we're using our electricity and our gadgets, what gadgets are worth it and what gadgets we can take back and kind of do old school, and investing in some old school gadgets, like a good grater, a handheld egg beater, I think will be something that people will probably get more and more of. I think right now there's a fetishization of like low tech things that, I don't know, I love tech. I love not having to wash my dishes and my clothes by hand. That saves me the most time of anything, is having those two things work for me. Having a slow cooker work for me. Having little gadgets like that, a blender. Those things are incredible. But we may live in a time in which electricity is valuable, and running all those things at once or running them regularly might not be an option. So I think being mindful of how much you use now is important, and is going to be part of that future climate change induced homemaking. I think a lot about dairy, how we're going to get and store our dairy in a low plastic, low waste future, since so much dairy comes in plastic. And am I going to need to make my own cottage cheese in the future? I really don't want to have to spend my time making all of that, but I might have to. And I've been thinking about like what I would live without. Cottage cheese is probably something I could live without. I could easily make a ricotta, easier than I can make a cottage cheese. Yogurt is fairly easy to make. It's just time. Again, it's all about time. A lot of these things aren't hard. It's just who has the time. Learning to bake bread is not actually hard. Making the time for baking bread every week, that's what's hard, right? Do you have a system? Tell me if you have a system. I'm really curious. And now I'm just going to make some lasagna. Actually putting it into my pans. Yes, I'm using aluminum. Are they the most sustainable? No, I could do better. I just only have one Pyrex dish for like big lasagnas. I only own one. And I got a big bunch of these from Costco that I'm working through. So, you know, I'm not perfect. If I ever claim to you that I'm doing it right and I'm perfect and you should do it my way, you should know that someone has snatched my body, because I will never ever say that. All right, so we're using the Jovial brand, boop boop, because I have a kid who's gluten-free, so I want him to be able to eat with us, and we are going to just fill these like so, and go from there. I would rather have less layers that have more good stuff in them than more layers. Is anybody else that way? I'd rather have like only 1 or 2 layers of lasagna, but have lots of meat sauce in between. Am I the only one like that? Might have overdone it. That's okay. That's okay. It's all gonna be super duper good. All right, so I've got my chicken from the fridge. I have newly cleaned hands, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to stuff these jars full of chicken up to 1-inch headspace, which is about down here. They do not need water or anything. They do not need broth, because this is the raw pack method, and as they cook, they'll release their own juice, and then I'll be able to have them shelf stable on my shelves. I won't take you through the whole process. I'll show you maybe a couple of jars, but this is just the easiest method, and frankly, I don't care about having aesthetic stuff on my shelves. I think that sometimes the aesthetic can get in the way and not really show us how much time it takes to do the things. Like, I think about all the people who like the homestead aesthetic, right? They like the slow living aesthetic of having fresh homemade bread and, you know, the beautiful like homemade pies and things like that, but they don't take into account how much time that takes, right? Like, so what do you do with that? Like, how do you square the beauty of the aesthetic with the fact that like it would be a lot of time to do all of that? So, yeah, I think about that a lot. This is definitely gonna be more than 7 jars. I do not know what I was thinking. Okay, I guess it's been a while, but I was able to get 9 jars. One of them isn't fully filled. I think it's this one. It's only sort of half filled. But I went ahead, I'm gonna go ahead and can it because I don't want to stick it back in the freezer since it's been thawed and I don't have anything I can cook with it right now. So 9 small mouth, it must be 7 wides and 10 regular mouth jars. So 9 regular mouth jars are gonna go in here, and I'm gonna process these and sit down for 5 minutes. Okay, so since it's a get things done kitchen day, I am doing a bunch of apples that were a good price, and I am going to be making apple butter. This is something I used to do a bunch, but haven't in the last year or 2. I'm waiting for my jars to heat up. They haven't yet gone through their venting cycle because, oh, that just fell apart. Because they haven't heated up yet. So that's what I'm working on, and just trying to do as much as possible. I'm gonna do it in a crock pot because I don't have enough to do a ton. If I can get 2, 3, 4 jars, I'll be happy with that. Like I said, right now everything is small batch because that's the time I have. So one more piece. Okay, it is the next morning and my canned chicken all looks good. I've washed it, I have labeled it, all of my lids held except that one. I had one that the lid came off in canning. How weird is that? But here's the chicken and a quick check on how the apple butter is going. I need to immersion blend it. That's the next step. This has about a half a cup of white sugar, about a whole cup of brown sugar, nutmeg, cinnamon, allspice, and a little bit of ginger. So it smells so good. Friends, thank you so much for joining me on this chatty work day. It's now gone into the second day of getting things done. I've been really thinking about the labor that it takes to be low waste and to do slow living and to be sustainable and to be prepared. And all of it takes time and effort. And so how do we begin to trade our time? How do we begin to take back our time? And how do we do it in a way where the weight of that does not fall on strictly women's shoulders? I really fear taking backward steps when it comes to women's progress and women being chained at home rather than liberated at home. I love my washing machine. I love my dryer. You know, I love those technological tools that free me to do other things like this channel, like having income that supports my family. But I also know that in a post-catastrophe situation where climate change or civil unrest or post-industrial systems, that when they've broken down, we're going to have to do more of these labor-intensive, time-intensive activities. So how do we start practicing it now? How do we start reclaiming some of these skills now? And how do we build community so that it's not isolating? A lot of women are really isolated in the past. So how do we change that narrative? I think that time is really going to become the new currency. So how do we begin understanding that currency now before we're in a catastrophe? I'm not sure, but I love your comments. I love your thoughts. So please leave them down below. This is an ongoing conversation. If you liked this conversation, I'm going to leave a video right here. It's on feminism and homemaking and how I think we're going to need more homemakers and how we're going to see that as a more and more important job. So check that video out right here. And until the next video, my friends, happy prepping.